Islamic State group's affiliate in Afghanistan has claimed responsibility for the attack outside the Kabul airport. Two suicide bombers and gunmen attacked crowds of Afghans flocking to Kabul's airport on Thursday, killing at least 90 Afghans and 13 US troops, Afghan and US officials said. Meanwhile, the ISIS released the photograph of the suicide bomber. The IS branch, known as the Islamic State-Khorasan Province after a name for the region from antiquity, said in its claim of responsibility that it targeted American troops and their Afghan allies. The statement carried a photo of what the militant group said was the bomber who carried out the attack. The image shows the alleged attacker standing with the explosive belt in front of the black IS flag with a black cloth covering his face, only his eyes showing. The statement made no mention of a second suicide bomber or gunman. The claim could not be independently verified. IS also said the bomber managed to get past Taliban security checkpoints to come within 5 meters of a gathering of US soldiers, translators and collaborators before detonating his explosives. It said Taliban were also among the casualties. The extremist IS group has battled the Taliban, which it views as traitorous for agreeing to a peace deal with the United States. The statement also said the bomber got around US security measures and that the camp that was targeted was where US forces were gathering paperwork for those who have worked with the military. The US general overseeing the evacuation said the attacks would not stop the United States from evacuating Americans and others, and flights out were continuing. General Frank McKenzie, head of US Central Command, said there was a large amount of security at the airport and alternate routes were being used to get evacuees in. About 5,000 people were awaiting flights on the airfield, McKenzie said. The blast came hours after Western officials warned of a major attack, urging people to leave the airport. But that advice went largely unheeded by Afghans desperate to escape the country in the last few days of an American-led evacuation before the US officially ends its 20-year presence on August 31st. The Islamic State group claimed responsibility for the killings on its Amaq news channel. The IS affiliate in Afghanistan is far more radical than Taliban, who recently took control of the country in a lightning blitz. The Taliban were not believed to have been involved in the attacks and condemned the blasts. In an emotional speech from the White House, US President Joe Biden said the latest bloodshed would not drive the US out of Afghanistan earlier than scheduled, and that he had instructed the US military to develop plans to strike ISIS. "We will not forgive, we will not forget. We will hunt you down and make you pay," Biden said. US officials initially said 11 Marines and one Navy medic were among those who died. Another service member died hours later. 18 service members were wounded and officials warned the toll could grow. More than 140 Afghans were wounded, an Afghan official said. One of the bombers struck people standing knee-deep in a wastewater canal under the sweltering sun, throwing bodies into the fetid water. Those who moments earlier had hoped to get on flights out could be seen carrying the wounded to ambulances in a daze, their own clothes darkened with blood. Emergency, an Italian charity that operates hospitals in Afghanistan, said it had received at least 60 patients wounded in the airport attack, in addition to 10 who were dead when they arrived. Surgeons will be walking into the night, said Marco Puntin, the charity's manager in Afghanistan. The wounded overflowed the trial zone into the psychotherapy area and more beds were being added, he said. The Afghan official who confirmed the overall Afghan toll spoke on condition of anonymity because he was not authorized to brief media. Pentagon spokesman John Kirby said one explosion was near an airport entrance and another was a short distance away by a hotel. McKenzie said clearly some failure at the airport allowed a suicide bomber to get so close to the gate. He said the Taliban has been screening people outside the gates, though there was no indication that the Taliban deliberately allowed Thursday's attacks to happen. He said the US has asked Taliban commanders to tighten security around the airport's perimeter. Adam Khan was waiting nearby when he saw the first explosion outside what's known as the Abbey Gate. He said several people appeared to have been killed or wounded, including some who were maimed. The second blast was at or near Barron Hotel, where many people, including Afghans, Britons and Americans, were told to gather in recent days before heading to the airport for evacuation. Additional explosions could be heard later, but Taliban spokesman Sabitullah Mujahid said some blasts were carried out by US forces to destroy their equipment. A former Royal Marine who runs an animal shelter in Afghanistan says he and his staff were caught up in the aftermath of the blast near the airport. All of a sudden, we heard gunshots and our vehicle was targeted. Had our driver not turned around, he would have been shot in the head by a man with an AK-47, Paul Penn, Fatin told Britain's Press Association news agency. News Desk Kaumudy, English.